Hi, ladies. Thank you for joining us. No tech issues this time. Woo! All right, we're just going to, yay. We're just going to wait one more minute before we get started, just for some people who are still joining. So in the meantime, please let us know where you're joining from. So there's an attendee chat. So just pop in the chat. Where are you joining from today? Are you joining from London, from Manchester, from Scotland? Let us know. London, great. London, London. York, awesome. Reading, London, London, awesome. Bristol, welcome Bristol. Fabulous. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes. One more minute, and then we'll get started and give our pension some attention. London, awesome. So great to see so many familiar names as well to Shiz on the Money. Awesome. Royal Leamington Spa, excellent. All right, so we have just hit 12 o'clock, so we might get started. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Pension 101. I'm really excited about today's webinar, and apologies for anyone who tried to join the other day. Technology was not my friend, and I really appreciate everyone's beautiful messages. Obviously, they could just see how stressful that situation would be, and they've been like, oh, that's nothing. You should have heard about this tech fail I had. So thanks for your support and messages. So just for those who don't know a little bit about Shiz on the Money, I started Shiz on the Money because women face unique challenges, and we're going to go into a couple of these, but we're not going to spend too much time on it. So, you know, we live longer and we earn less. We invest less, we're more likely to be in debt, and we're retiring on almost, you know, half to a lot less than our male counterparts. And what this means is ultimately we have less control over our financial futures. So I wanted to do something about that because I was like, these stats suck, and the world of finance can be very male, pale, and stale, and not very female friendly. So we started Shiz on the Money, and now we run events, workshops, a little less on the event side, a little more on the webinar side, all about helping you get money savvy and feel confident about taking control of your financial future. Alrighty, so we've done that. Awesome. Yeah, because we don't want to end up in that situation. So just quickly, 3 rules of Shiz on the Money. So rule number 1 is we do talk about finance. So we talk about finance to all the women in our lives, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our besties. If you want to be traveling around the Mediterranean on a cruise, if cruises still exist by then, with your gal pals, they've got to have money as well. Rule number 2, no more excuses. So no more, oh, this is boring. I don't like finance. I'm not a numbers person. My partner just looks after it. No, these will not do. We are the only ones responsible for our money. We can't rely on rich parents, rich aunts, rich uncles, winning the lotto, marrying a prince. We know Meghan Markle did that and she had her own money. And rule number 3, no question is too blonde. So we've got the chat here. At any time when you don't know something, just ask us a question. We'll come back to it. If we don't get to it, we'll try to get to it at the end. And if we don't get to it at the end, we will create a blog or we'll put something on Facebook and we'll get you that answer. Alrighty, so just quickly, before we get started, how would you rate your pension sitch at the moment? Are you like, oh, I don't think I have one? And I do hear that a lot of, you know, self-employed people don't. It's just not a priority. We're going to learn more about that later and why it should be a priority. Number 2, I don't know where it is. Like, I think I got one, but I don't know where it is. Are you like number 3, I have one, I put money away, but I'm not sure where that money goes? Are you like number 4, I'm on it, we are so good, we are so fine? Or you like, boom, number 5, I'm the pension queen, hello, my glowing retirement. So hit us up in the attendee chat and let us know. Awesome. So we've got a bunch of 3s. Excellent. 4s, 3s. Shout out to my Aussie friends. Thanks, ladies. Excellent. 4, 3, 3. Okay, so we are all sitting at a nice 4. Thank you for your honesty, the 1s and the 2s. Okay, awesome. Fantastic. We've got someone who is filling the 4s, mainly a 3. Okay, that's good. So we know we've got one. We just don't really know where it is or where it's going. We can work with that. Fantastic. Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick poll. And, again, there is no right or wrong answer, but do you know how much is in your pension pot right now? So if someone wants to say, how much is in your pension pot right now, could you tell them? Alrighty. I'm going to share these results with everyone just so you can see. Alrighty, so we're at kind of like 50-50. Awesome. Okay, cool. Good to know. Alrighty, so we're going to run a little Instagram competition because Instagram is so hot right now and I love it. So please tag Shoes on the Money and Fidelity International with a moment from today's presentation. Clearly this was from the other night when it should have been the night. And we're actually going to give away a place on our 6-week money boot camp. And that's worth £360, and we're going to announce the winner at the end. So get your tagging on and hit us up. Fantastic. Alrighty. So I'm really excited because sometimes when we talk about pensions, it's not the sexiest of topics. It's like, let's talk about retirement. And you're kind of like, I know for me, I'm like, retirement, I'm still single and I'm in my 30s. I haven't got married, I haven't had kids, I haven't done anything. Pension is not at the top of my priority list. But what we're going to learn tonight is that we can do really small things now, which means that when we do retire, we don't have to worry about not having any money in that pot, and we can enjoy retirement, enjoy those years that we worked so hard for. So really excited to introduce Micah Curry, and she is from Fidelity International, and she provides insight, content, and the communication to engage self-directed investors with their savings and investments, which is brilliant because we want to learn all about that. Prior to joining Fidelity International, she worked at Investec Asset Management, heading up its team of investment writers and working closely with the investment teams to translate their thoughts into actionable and interesting content for clients, which means she's really good at breaking down the complex. She's also spent a sizable part of her career working as a financial journalist across a number of titles at Financial Times Group. She writes a regular column for the Financial Times Money Page. She's the author of The Search, a spokesperson for the broader Fidelity business community, often appearing on BBC Business, Sky News, and ITV. So we are in very, very good hands. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you, Micah.
Thank you, Molly, and thanks for that kind introduction. I am delighted to be joining you today and to be talking about pensions on this Friday. As Molly mentioned, my job at Fidelity is really to distill the world of pensions and investments and make it more accessible, interesting, engaging to end investors. And I do that in a variety of ways, whether it's creating content, talking to the media, talking directly to our clients. In a previous life, I was a financial journalist and I did much of the same thing. Now, I want us to achieve one thing today. I want us to think that pensions are sexy. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from today is to get really engaged and excited about your pension. If you think that is something that's not possible, I hope that I convince you otherwise today. And the three things we need to take away from today is, one, we need to know how much is in our pension pot. We need to know and understand where that pot is invested. And then finally, we need to answer what I would say the $1 million pound, Aussie dollar, South African rand question is it enough? Whatever's in that pot, will it be enough for one day when you do come to retirement? So if we don't achieve that today, shout out, raise your hands, question, put out some questions, because that's the purpose of today. I'd also love it if you could follow me on Instagram. My handle's @Micah Curry, and follow the fabulous company that I work for, Fidelity International. The content that we put out there on our Instagram page is all about getting women to invest, getting us to engage with pensions and investments, and making them sexy. So, before we get to talking about pensions, what is a pension?
It's just cutting out a tiny bit. Could you just speak a little bit closer to the laptop?
Sure. I wonder if I need to get, would it help if I put some headphones on?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, bear with.
I shall keep the ladies entertained while you're doing that with some weird dancing. I'm going to stop doing that because that's not cool.
Does that help? Is that better sound-wise?
Yeah, that sounded good.
Cool. That'll probably cut out some of the noise too. So before we get into pensions, before we start talking about why pensions matter and why you need to get excited about pensions, we need to talk about the challenges. Now, Molly touched on these briefly. Why do we need to have this conversation? Why are we insisting that you dial into this webinar on Fabulous Friday? Well, while we've moved on from the days of Jane Austen, where the primary goal of any woman was to find a husband with enough money to keep her in lace bonnets and to save her from destitution, we still haven't worked out to deal with the concept of the female breadwinner. And the irony is that a third of working women today in Europe are the main breadwinner, likewise in the US. But there's some antiquated belief that to be the female breadwinner, this equals relationship disaster, because you won't just have one job, you'll have 3 jobs. You'll be working, you'll be taking care of the household chores, and you might be managing your other half's ego. So we need to get our head around that. And while we are acutely aware of stereotyping, so, not getting our girls dressed in pink, making sure the boys also play with dollies, we still talk about the same things. We all talk to each other about, where did you get that dress? And that's a nice bag. And if you look at the magazines that are supposedly all about empowerment and self-actualization, all of that is focused on spending. None of that is focused on saving. Do we ever talk to our girlfriends, our mothers, our grandmothers about investing? No, we don't. Why do we need these conversations? Because of these challenges that we've got on that screen. The motherhood penalty. It is a well-established fact that women have babies, men can't have babies. But what no one talks about is the impact having a baby will have on everything from your paycheck, your promotion, to crucially your pension. Now, contrast this with what is referred to as the fatherhood bonus, the idea that when men have a child, that they're more stable, more mature, and they often get a pay rise, right? And what we do tend to talk about when we are expecting a baby is, what's the best buggy on the market? What's a really good baby monitor? Researching our hospital's maternity wards. What we don't talk about is, what is the impact having that baby is going to have on our pension, on our earnings, on our long-term savings. Now, some of you might be aware of a gender pension gap, right? The fact that we earn less, the other challenge that you'll see on that slide is the gender pay gap. The fact that we get paid less than our male counterparts, the 18% gender pay gap, means that the gender pension gap, the gap between our pensions when we reach retirement age, is almost double that, around 28%. But by far the biggest impact, the biggest reason why women end up having a pension pot a third the size of their male counterparts is because we take time off to raise children or to look after sick or elderly relatives. We are the family carer. So I've spoken about the motherhood penalty. I've spoken about the gender pay gap, the good daughter penalty. Most women are still the carers. And this might be a staggering stat. By the time we reach age 46, half of us will be carers. Women are also far more likely to be what the term refers to as sandwich carers, caring for elderly parents and adult children. One of the reasons for this is increasingly many of us are deciding to have children later in life because it makes emotional or financial sense. But what does then tend to happen is that we find ourselves with adult or teenage children at home, taking care of them, children at university, and at the same time having elderly parents. And we're in that kind of sandwich space where we squeeze between caring for two generations. Now, the final one on that slide is that we are all really busy. Yes, we are very busy, and especially during this time. I mean, we are juggling homeschooling, we are juggling taking care of the household tasks and trying to work from home in a very, very stressful time. But it's also true that women have this innate inability to put ourselves first. So I often see this. A woman will put up a savings plan for a child, put something away for her parents, help out a friend. And at the bottom of this list is your own finances. So we need to put ourselves first. And even though our wiring is not tuned for that, and we will do everything else before we prioritize our personal finances, we need to get to that. So that is briefly the challenges, and that is why we need to have this conversation today about pensions. So if we can click through to the next slide, Molly.
Sure.
Right, so often when I talk to a group of women and I ask them, are you an investor? It's about a 50-50 response. Half the room might put up their hands, some are like hesitating, put up their hands. Then I ask them, do you have a workplace pension? Now, we do know that in the UK, it is now legislation that every employer needs to offer their employees a pension. So most people who are in formal employment will be in a workplace pension. So when I ask that question, everyone raises their hands. And that's when I do the kind of drum roll. Guess what? You are an investor. If you are in a workplace pension, you are an investor, and we need to start thinking of ourselves in that way. But why don't women think of themselves as investors? Well, one reason is there's a lack of role models. So you can take any industry in the world, be it technology, science, business, entertainment, and you will find a female icon. Right? Now, name a female icon in investment. Give me your female Warren Buffett. There's a lack of role.
Mrs. Buffett? Is there a Mrs. Buffett?
Well, it's ironic because we know Warren Buffett talks of himself as investing like a girl. So whether that's true or not, but I thought long and hard about this, and I've searched, and in my job, I get to speak to a lot of female fund managers. So there are female investors, but they're not well known. There's no household name. I did find one though. Step Up, Oprah Winfrey. So what Oprah Winfrey did was she invested in Weight Watchers. She really liked the brand. She tried it. She put some money into that, and she watched its stocks soar. Now, why am I referencing this? You had your Investing 101 workshop. As we know, women shy away from investing. They shy away from pensions because we think we don't know enough about the subject. So we stand back, right? Stand back. But here's the thing. Investing, like pensions, isn't rocket science. What you do every day, what you consume, what you read, tells you a lot about the world. And that, in essence, is investing. And if we just take the current environment, COVID-19, being in this situation where we're at home, where we're ordering our groceries online, where we are binge watching Netflix, all of that tells you something about which companies will be and the losers of the future. And that is basically what investors do. Those men in suits in the city, they look at the world and they see where the opportunities lie and they invest in those companies. Right. So on to what's a pension. You might say, how can I be an investor because of my pension if I don't even fully really understand what a pension is? Now, if I can sum it up in one line, I would say a pension scheme is just a type of savings plan that helps you to save for later life. Okay? that is a pension in essence. Now, if we go into the next slide, if you say still too complex, I'm sorry, don't get it. What is a pension? Think of a pension. If we can click to the next one.
Yeah, sure.
If the whole concept of a savings plan for retirement still seems in the distant future, just think of a pension in this way. And the next time someone asks you, what is a pension? The answer is very simple, 2 words. A pension is free money. Who doesn't like free money? And who's giving you free money when you save into a pension? The very people who take your time, work. So if you contribute to an employer workplace pension, work is putting money into that pot, matching it. And who's the other institution who takes money from you? The government, when we pay taxes. When you put money into a pension, you get extra money from the government in the form of tax relief. They top that up. It means in essence that when you want to put £100 into a pension and you're a basic rate taxpayer, you only need to put in £80. The government adds free £20. It is magic, as if by magic. So that is the beauty of a pension. Now, the reason people don't get excited about it is, well, that's fine, but I can't access the money. The money is locked away. And we live in an era of instant access. So it's very difficult to get excited about something that's locked away. How long is it locked away for? At the moment, money is locked away in a private pension until you're aged 55. It'll increase to age 57 by 2028. And of course, the state pension is locked away until you reach state pension age. So it's too complicated. It's too far away. I'm not interested. I'm still not interested, even though it's free money. You haven't convinced me, Micah. Let's pop to the next slide.
Great. And just on that, ladies, sometimes when you said that before around like it's your retirement, it's hard to get excited about. A lady once told me it's like getting ready for a holiday, but the holiday goes for like 30 to 40 years, and you don't want to rock up to that holiday without any money, because like how unfun is a holiday without any money? So you can do all your research, you know where you want to go, where you want to eat, you do all your holiday research, but you get there and you got no cash. So what that money is you're putting away now is for that holiday later on in life. And if you don't put that money away now, you're not going to have any holiday, and it's going to be really grim.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant analogy, Molly. And I think when we think about retirement, what do we think about? We think about growing old. No one wants to think about that, right? So we think, oh God, it's all about aging well, spending some more money on a moisturizer. But the thing is, right, you're going to spend more time in retirement than you're probably going to spend working. And if we think of our life as kind of 3 key stages, the first 20 years is kind of when you become a person, an adult, you're going through school, you're growing up, you're going to study. And then you enter the work environment. So you work from, let's say, age 25 to age 55. And then when we get to age 55, that's when, well, you've got a choice in terms of when you want to retire, but the next stretch is all about retirement. So in that middle bit, the bit where you're working, the accumulation phase, that's the bit where you've got to make and put away enough money for that holiday to last for that entire holiday. Now, if we go back to the first slide, just cast your mind back to the challenges. Why does this matter to women? Because in those 30 years that we've got to put that pot together, we are having babies. We are being passed pay rises. We might miss the promotion. We are getting paid less than our male counterparts. We are looking after our parents, sick and elderly relatives. We are taking career breaks. We are deciding to work part-time. And we still need to end up with a pot that lasts for 30 years. And I'll get to this in a moment, but we're going to live longer. So you see where the challenge comes in. An aging population, you've heard a lot about this, means that that investing now, getting engaged with your pension, is not a helpful tool. It's not something for men in suits in the city. It is a necessity. The responsibility of planning for retirement no longer sits with the state, and I'll explain to you why that is. It now sits with the individual, and we need to plan ahead. We do need to think about that to ensure we've got that financial stability and financial independence, which is, of course, the key to empowerment. Now, on the next slide, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about getting a letter from the Queen? What are the chances that you're going to get a letter from the Queen? Well, we know that the Queen sends a letter every year to everyone who turns 100 years, centenarians, if I can get it pronounced correctly. Now, this practice was started back in 1917, so almost exactly 100 years ago. It was started by the Queen's grandfather, King George. And in 1917, he sent the first telegrams to people celebrating their 100th birthday. In that year, he sent 24 telegrams, right? Now, the Queen sends 6,000 letters every year. In fact, the Queen has a birthday card team which has grown exponentially in recent years to cope with the burden of sending those letters. And the expectation is by 2050, 50,000 people will reach this milestone. So there's a very good chance that you will reach the age of 100. There's a very good chance that you will get a letter from the Queen or her son or grandson, be it. Because in just 20 years, the numbers of people in the UK that are 100 years old has increased by 65%. Here's the rub. When you drill into those numbers, you'll see that most of those people are women. Today in the UK, 7 in 10 people over the age of 90 are female. The Queen herself is over the age of 90. And we don't all have a palace or crown jewels. We need to take ownership and we need to prepare for that time because we want to enjoy it. So how do you do that? You start by changing your thinking. If we pop to the next slide.
Sure. You can also, sorry, you can also flick through them on your screen as well. Just
FYI. Can I? Yeah. Sorry.
And thank you everyone for the questions coming through. We will get to these at the end because they are some really awesome questions.
Cool. Right. So I touched on this. Let's simplify our lives. Let's not think of our lives as you know, when I get married, when I get my university degree, when I have children. Just simplify your lives and think of these in very simple terms as accumulation and decumulation years. And the first half of that chart is the accumulation phase. That is the time from your 20s where you start saving and building wealth. And then the decumulation years is when you draw down that wealth. And as I said, the rub here is, and that pink bit is not. If you're a woman, you have all these challenges that are down to biology, challenges that are down to society. And you can spend your time getting angry about it, but there's not a lot you can do about it. The one thing you can do about it is to save something for retirement, is to invest. Okay, Molly, I'm going to see if I can actually manage to click to the next slide.
You got this.
Oh goodness! Wow.
Woo!
And she clicks on the arrow, and she did it. Yay! Just a simpler sketch of what I've been speaking about. Oh, there, I just closed the entire window. bear with. Okay.
All right, it's up on now.
So putting everything into the pension pot so that you can draw that down, spending the money. Now, the key thing here is just to remember, and this is where people often get confused. They look at what they've put in their pension and they think, crikey, there's £30,000 in my pension, there's £50,000 or maybe 100K. That's wonderful. I'm going to get all of that money when I retire. Or some people are still under the misconception they can get that money now. The money is locked away until you reach retirement age. And when you reach retirement age, you can only access a quarter of that, 25% tax free. The rest stays invested and you draw an income from that. You can either keep it invested in the stock markets, which is where your pension is now, or you can buy something known as an annuity, which is essentially a life insurance product that pays you an income every month. And we'll get to the nitty-gritty of that, but it is something I do want to be quite clear on. It's not what's in that pot, you're going to get the entire lot out. So much like a car accelerates and decelerates, that is our working life and the decumulation years.
And I'm assuming we want, like, if we did it really perfectly, our pension pot would last till the last day we live. Yeah,
that's right. Well, you say that, and in a few years ago, we had something called pension freedoms in the UK, and I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about that. Basically, what pension freedoms was more flexibility in terms of how you could take your pensions. In the past, most people could only buy an annuity and get that secure income. The problem was if you passed away, the money that was left would go to the life insurance company. Now, with the ability to keep your pension invested in something known as income drawdown, you could potentially pass that money down to your children and even your grandchildren. So pensions have become the ultimate savings vehicle. They've become a way of leaving a legacy to the next generation. There's also the fact that they don't form part of your estate for inheritance tax, which is a huge draw. So you could decide to run it all down to the last drop. None of us know when we're going to pass away, or you could just live off the natural income from your pot and you could leave something to your nearest and dearest. But I think, a lot of that in terms of decumulation, you need to worry about when you come to taking the pot. What we need to focus on is how do we build that pot? How do we build a pot that's going to be enough so that we can have a decent standard of living in retirement? So remember, I go back to the challenges, and the reason I harp on about this is because of this. If you look at your screen, the gender pension gap. There are 50% more women in the UK today heading towards retirement without any private pension savings, right? 1.2 million women in their 50s with no private pension pot. So they will either have to rely on their partners or on the state pension. And there's a caveat here. You don't just get the full state pension. And I'll explain this in a minute. But basically, what you get depends on how many years you work and how many years you pay national insurance. Again, if we are working part-time and taking career breaks, because that is the right thing for us, that might have an impact on how much of a state pension we do receive. Okay, I don't want to depress you too much, but I want you to be very, very conscious of that gender pension gap. Because when we start out in our 20s, we actually have the same, or in most cases more, than our male counterparts in a pension pot. Then, in our 30s, the age most women today decide to have babies, that's when the gap starts. And the gap gets larger and larger. And then by the time we're in our 50s and we're thinking about retirement, that is when the gap is at its largest. And women have a third of what men have in their pension pots. Good. Next screen. Right. Before I depress you too much, I do want to dwell on what's the good news and what's the bad news, or the not so good news around retirement. The good news is that when you reach retirement, you are probably going to be in good health. Aging retirement doesn't look like it looked a few years ago. Right, there's no cliff edge that now you've reached your 60s and you're over it. In fact, if we look at today's retirees, they are healthier, they are wealthier than any generation before them. And I can reference my mother, and she retired about 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, she has traveled to Mexico, to Peru, to India. She has done so many things because she's healthy, because she was quite diligent in putting money away in a pot, but also you're not over it. In fact, that is the time that you can really enjoy life. And they talk about silver surfers or travelers, people who once considered past it. Their felt everywhere. And companies, travel companies, they're all adjusting to that. Now, of course, all of that has been put on hold in the current environment. But I think about retirement as something negative. Think about it as potentially the best time of your life. But as Molly pointed out, it can only be the best time in your life if you've got the money to fund it. What's not so good news, and what's not such good news for women, is when we do reach retirement, we have the likelihood that we might be sandwich carers, part of the sandwich generation. It's linked to the fact that more and more of us have babies later in life. I was speaking to someone the other day who said in one area in London, the average age of mothers in the maternity ward is 38 years old. People decide to have babies at a later age because they want to do things, they want to travel, they want to build their career, and that is absolutely fine. But you're going to hit a spot where your children are going to be adults or at university, requiring a lot of support because they probably will struggle to get on the property ladder. And at the same time, your parents are going to be much older, possibly not in good health, and you're going to be caring for both generations. And this usually hits when we're in our late 40s, mid 40s, early 50s. And that is exactly the time where you should actually be thinking about how you're going to draw down that pot. Do you have enough in the pension pot? Should you boost the pension pot? But you will be consumed with all of these concerns too. Silver separators. Silver separators is just a catchy term, if you like, for the fact that more and more people later in life divorce. In fact, the one age group where divorce statistics have been going up is the age 60s. Because one, women have more financial independence today. There's no longer the stigma attached to divorce than there was before. People who still make the decision to stay together for the children, when their children are out of the house, they make the decision to divorce. So even though, across other generations, the level of divorce is falling, there's been around an 85% increase in divorce stats for men and women age 60 plus. Of course, there are various implications around finance, around loneliness. But the key thing is, if you've been caring for the family, you've been looking after the children, you've been putting your career on hold, all the while your husband has been stashing money away into a pension, you reach your late 50s or early 60s and you decide you want to divorce, what do people do? They decide, oh, well, the woman might get the family home, the property, and that seems like a no-brainer because property prices have soared in recent years. What about the pension pot? Does anyone talk about splitting the pension pot? Because that is the most valuable asset, not the family home. Because a property comes with a lot of expenses, as we do know, but a pension can do something that a property can't. A pension can pay you a regular income for the rest of your life. Now, you could argue that a property could do that too if you rent it out, but where are you going to stay? You're going to deal with difficult tenants, the upkeep, all of that. None of that happens with a pension. And then finally, I've touched on this briefly in terms of the sandwich generation, but the cost of care. The fact that women are more likely to be carers, the fact that there are challenges like dementia, like people living longer, and it comes back to the good daughter penalty, that it is often the sister or the mother or the woman who takes the break to go and care for that person who needs care. And there's all this talk at the moment about COVID-19 being a feminist issue because it's impacting women a lot more. A lot of women are key workers. A lot of women are the ones trying to keep their household running, who are driving out with groceries to take that to sick or elderly relatives. And it's really been amplified, those challenges. So let's see what's on the next slide. So now that I've painted the broader picture about why this matters, I want to get into the nitty-gritty, and I'm conscious of time. I want to leave some time to get to your questions as to how you need to think about pensions, what they are. Let's break it down. There are three types of pensions you need to know about: your workplace pension, your state pension, and a private pension. When it comes, and all three of those, ultimately, when you reach retirement, should be combined to provide you with a retirement income.
Do you say combined? Sorry, do you mean combined into one place or just you total up all the amount.
The income streams from all of those. And we can talk a bit about how you put that in practice. When I talk about a workplace pension, I would say the most valuable benefit of working is your workplace pension. And the irony is, when we are thinking about taking a new job, we think about what the salary is. We used to, in the old world, think about the commute, think about the staff canteen, think about your colleagues, think about the culture of the company and the brand. Does anyone ever think about the workplace pension? Do you ever, if you're in the fortunate position where you've been offered 2 jobs, compare what's on offer pension-wise? That is the number one benefit of working. Slaving away every day to earn an income. You know what's the silver lining? The workplace pension. Because, as I mentioned, your company is contributing and you're contributing. And a lot of companies will match and boost your contributions. So absolutely, if you've got the option of taking advantage of a workplace pension, do that. And I know we're in an environment at the moment where a lot of people are being furloughed, or they might know someone who's being furloughed. It was a word that none of us knew a month ago, and now it's part of our dialect. Your contributions to your pension scheme should continue unless your employer has told you otherwise. It will, of course, be a percentage of your lowest salary. So if you're receiving 80% of your salary, it'll be a lower percentage. But a lot of people might be tempted at this stage to say, you know what, I'm going to batten down the hatches. I am reviewing my spending and I'm going to stop contributing into my pension plan. Think very carefully before you do that, because the long-term impact on your retirement pot will be significant. So if you can continue, try to continue. And as I've out to many people, the new environment will have seen you change your spending. So you're probably saving on travel costs. You're probably saving on that morning coffee. Your social life, which has disappeared overnight, means you're spending less on dining out. Now, a lot of those savings are being gobbled up. I know in my case they are, by being on a first name basis with my Amazon delivery man. But you can make savings at this stage and sort of funneling those savings into your workplace pension. Just want to grab a sip of water. State pension. There's a misconception that people think that they can rely on the state pension. I don't need to worry about putting money into a pension because the state will provide.
175.20 a week? Yeah, that's not going to get you living that luxurious life. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that is very little to survive on. And there's no guarantee that you will get the £175. You will get that if you've got a full national insurance record. That means you've got 35 years of paying NI contributions, 35 years of working. It is very unlikely that most of us women will have that clocked up. To get some state pension, not the full £175.20 a week, some state pension, you need at least 10 years worth of national insurance contributions. Now, there's only one thing I want everyone to remember here. And if you remember one thing about the state pension, it's this. There's a link between having a baby and what happens to your state pension. Because when you have a baby, you have to register for child benefit. And even if you don't intend on taking child benefit because you earn more than the threshold or your partner earns more, you've got to fill out that form. Because that form ensures that you still clock up the NI contributions every year. And you can do that until your child reaches age 12. And that's going to make a difference because you're not going to catch up on that. So make sure, sometimes the form is in the maternity pack they give you in hospital after you've had a baby. The last thing you think about, fill out the child benefit form. It is crucial. Okay. Private pension. A lot of us work for ourselves, because it gives us that flexibility, part-time work. So you won't have a workplace pension. You won't have an employer putting money in for you. This is where you've got to set up your own pension. And what these pensions are typically called are SIPs, self-invested personal pension. You can set that up with a number of providers. Fidelity is just one. There's a whole spate of those. And think of the SIP and think of pensions generally just as a wrapper. It's the gift wrap. Inside the gift wrap are the investments. So once you've set up the SIP, you've still got to choose where you invest your contributions, what the underlying investments are. And look for a provider that's got a big spread of investments, and look for a provider that's got competitive charges when it comes to a SIP. Even if you are not earning, Molly, do you want to interject?
I was just going to ask really quickly. So when you say, and then you have to choose what you invested in, so you'll be choosing investments which have already created and already diversified. You're not going to have to pick like a pharmaceutical company in Germany or like a Japanese bank. You'll just be picking the type of risk you want to take, and then it will all be kind of diversified for you already, which people should have learned in the last session.
So with a SIP, right? You get the SIP from a fund provider, or what I call a fund supermarket, and on that supermarket there will be all kinds of investments, ranging from the pharmaceutical company, whether you want to buy GlaxoSmithKline, which obviously I wouldn't advise you do with your retirement savings, all the way through to an emerging market fund from all the various asset managers, fund providers, all the way through to something called a multi-asset fund, where the diversification is taken care of for you. So depending on how risky you want to do it, you can choose, I'm going to have this stock and I'm going to have this fund, or I'm just going to put it all in a multi-asset fund, which pays me an income or gives me some capital growth. So the thing with the SIP where it becomes a bit trickier, it's different from a workplace pension, because with a workplace pension, there'll be a set of investments that your company would have looked at, and there'll be a limited choice. With a SIP, there's a lot more choice, which can be confusing and can be daunting, and you have to make that choice. A good way to take care of the questions around diversification that we always drum up about is to look at something like a multi-asset fund. So that's kind of the three bits you need to think about. Think about state pension, personal pension, workplace pension. Now the big question, how much do you need? How much is enough? How do I know that I've got enough in my pot right now? This is the simple rule of thumb. And basically, when you're 30 years old, you need the equivalent of 1 times your salary. So let's say I'm 30 years old. I'm not, I'm past that, but I'm 30 years old. I'm earning £30,000 a year. I want to maintain the same lifestyle as I have at the moment. By that age, I need £30,000 in my pot. Now I'm 40. I'm still earning £30,000, but I've got to have £60,000 in my pot by now. When I'm 50, I need 4 times that. When I'm 60, 6 times, and then on. So, do a screen grab of that, because that's what we call our retirement rules of thumb, and it's a really handy benchmark to know if you're on track. Again, it's all dependent on maintaining your lifestyle when you get to retirement age. So that kind of answers the question about how much is enough. And then there are all kinds of tools you can play around with. This one tool that I shared with Molly is on our website.
Yeah, so it's really easy to use. So you just type in your name, how old you are. I'm Molly, I'm 30. I gave myself the age discount. You put in how much you're making. So I put 36,000, which is apparently the average in the UK. And then you just type in what you're excited for the future. So I said margaritas. And then it tells you if you increase your contribution by just 1% of your salary, you could have an additional 66,400 to enjoy those margaritas with. So this is a really cool tool. So I'll put it in the email I send out with the link to this recording, but it's a good one to have a play with. We're just getting a couple of questions. So I just wanted to quickly ask you a couple. So we had someone say they're only earning 10K a year. They pay their bills, they pay their rent. There's not a lot left over. Oh, we've just got a bit of feedback on the line.
I hope that's on me.
Okay.
It's better?
Yes, better. So is it still worth her putting money into a pension, or should she wait until she's earning more money?
So what I would point out, the one thing too, because she's given me that figure of £10,000, that is a key thing around auto-enrollment, why a lot of women aren't captured in auto-enrollment. Auto-enrollment is the legislation that the government brought in that requires all employers to set up a pension scheme. But because that there's a limit to your earnings, you need to earn more than £10,000. And because of a lot of women earn less than £10,000, they are not scooped up by auto-enrollment. Auto-enrollment also doesn't take into account if you've got lots of part-time jobs. So you might be earning a little bit over 10K, but by doing 3 or 4 jobs. It doesn't take account of that. It doesn't take your earnings. So in that case, you're not benefiting from a workplace pension. So you've got to take matters into your own hands, set up a self-invested personal pension, a SIP, and put something in. Even if it's just a small amount, it is absolutely worth it, because once you put that money in, right, you're going to see that tax relief top up. And it is as if by magic. You're going to put in your £80, and £20 is going to be put in by the government. And you're going to log in and you're going to see there's £100. And then when you invest it, you can get that money to grow. So I would say, I know it's tough because you've got lots of expenses that you need to cover with your salary. But if you can put a little bit away, we've done some sums. The difference £35 a month can make is substantial. You've got even if you're not working and earning, you can still put money into a SIP. You can put in £2,880 a year, and you will get £720 top up from the government. So that £2,880 will magically grow before we've had any investment growth to £3,600 a month. Now, if you're looking after the children and your husband is earning or your partner is earning, there's a good case to be made for them to put that money into the pension on your behalf. Spread over a year, it's not a lot. It's around £200 a month. It's worth doing.
And then just quickly, we've got a couple of questions from people just saying, look, I'm a little bit older. I've probably only got like 10 years. My pension pot is looking really small. Is there any kind of advice that you can give me?
So the first thing I'd say is if you've worked at various employers, you might have lots of pension pots dotted around, smaller pension pots that you could have possibly forgotten about. There is a service known as the Pension Tracing Service. Google that. That can help you track down lost pots. So you might find, even though the pots are small, you can bring them together. You will save on charges. It'll be easier to administer. Be conscious, though, that some pensions come with a guarantee, some come with important benefits. So make sure you check that you're not giving up those guarantees before you consolidate your pensions in one place. But there's a lot of upside to consolidate. You could consolidate it in a SIP, bring all your old workplace pensions together. And you might look at that pot and say, still, it's not a lot. You can still start contributing, even if you're not earning. Contribute that £2,880 because, as I say, we're living longer, we are in better health. You might not need to draw down that pot. And you can, in the space of 5 years, 10 years, you can actually give that pot that you do have a massive boost and get it to a place where it can provide you with some income.
And sorry, just another question. When does the government make these payments? So people are asking, can I have a workplace pension and a personal pension, so a SIP? You can have both, can't you? There's not a limit.
There's no limit to the amount of pensions you're allowed to have. And you can have a workplace pension and a personal pension. In fact, we've just dealt with a client who had 13 pension pots dotted around. So there's no limit to how many pension pots you can have. Just bear in mind, you will pay fees on those investments. So if you can consolidate them together, it might make sense. The workplace,
not in the paperwork.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is you can only contribute £40,000 a year into a pension and still receive tax relief. You can also only contribute as much as you earn. So let's say you earn £30,000 a year. You can't contribute more than that in a year and get tax relief. So that is something to be aware of. So there are what they refer to as allowances, which are in essence limits, how much you can put into your pot every year, and something called a lifetime allowance, which bizarrely is a limit to how much you can have in a pension pot over your lifetime. which is
right.
around 1 million, 1.23 million, which would be a nice problem to have.
All right,
if you hit
I'm going
that.
to skip these next slides because we did talk about compounding in the last Investing 101, so people can rewatch that if they want to get a reminder about compounding. I just want to quickly ask, we're getting so many questions. Like, obviously we have a lot of international travelers on our chat tonight, so a lot of people are saying, look, I spent the first few years of my life traveling, so either I'm starting with that zero pot, but what happens if I want to go back to my original country? Can I take that money with me? And vice versa, can I bring that money from that country back into the UK? I imagine that's going to be like, each case is going to be different, but I'll let you have a go at that.
Absolutely. It all depends on what the legislation is within that country. But the starting point for this is something known as QROPS, which is another catchy piece of jargon. It's QROPS. Google that. QROPS is the legislation around whether you can expatriate your pension to another country. Most people do it. The thing I would say bear in mind is exchange rates. So you might have a very lucrative pension in South Africa, or what you think is a very big pension pot, but the rand to pound exchange rate might be 20 to 1. And when you bring that pension pot over, once you've paid all the fees and you've taken the exchange rate into consideration, it might not be worth that much.
Great. All right. Sorry, I know we've only got like 5-10 minutes left, so I'll let you power through and I won't ask any more questions.
Okay, so I did say I want you guys to know where that pension is invested. So very quickly, with your workplace pension, you could either when it's set up, you will be automatically invested in the default lifestyle. Now, the analogy I use here is go to a restaurant, you get the set menu, you know what you're going to get. Everyone gets the set menu. You might not like everything on the set menu. The pudding might be awful, the starter might be awful, but you kind of know what you're going to get, right? Remember that the default option is designed so that it is appropriate for the worker that's in their early 20s and the worker who's in their late 50s. So this is not an investment that's going to shoot the lights out. As you near retirement, the default option will start de-risking. So that's one option. That's the option if you really don't know what you're doing and you don't want to make a choice. Then you can be a self-selector. That's what you are when you've got a SIP set up, where you choose the investments. Now, when you look at the investment choices on your workplace pension, how do you choose? Well, if you're at the start, if you're young, you've got to allocate more to equities. Equities, fancy name for shares. Fancy name for funds that invest in the stock market, right? You've got to have more in there because you need that growth. You need that growth because you're going to live for longer. Also look at charges of those underlying investments. So you don't have to worry about the charges attached to your workplace pension because your employer decided. Your employer decided that Fidelity was going to be the provider of your workplace pension. You don't need to worry about charges. What you do need to worry about is, are you making the most of employer contributions? Are you matching that? And what are you investing in? Self-select. Look at what the default lifestyle is costing. Look if you can self-select and it could be cheaper, because compound interest also works with charges. Over many years, those charges compound, it's a snowball effect, and it will chip away at what you save. So that's all you need to know about investments, really. Default self-select, that is in reference to a workplace pension.
And you can change your workplace pension. So say I'm working for an agency, they put me into their default. I look at it, I go, oh, I'd like to take more risk. I can choose to go into a different workplace
so that
pension.
that is changing the investments within the wrapper. So I worked for Investec. I looked at where my Investec pension plan was invested. I changed, I self-selected. Then I started to work for Fidelity. I still had the Investec plan over here invested. With Fidelity, I chose other investments. Then I said, right, transfer. I don't want two pension plans. I don't want to be paying fees in two places. Transferred the Investec pension plan over to Fidelity. Now, let's say the Investec pension plan was provided by Standard Life, the pension provider. Standard Life, Aviva, Aegon, Fidelity's pension plan and is provided by Fidelity. I transferred it over, I've consolidated it. I had a pension pot with the Financial Times. I haven't transferred that one over because I have some special benefits attached to that one. So sometimes it makes sense to transfer, consolidate to get that sense of control and admin power. Open the drawer, get out the paperwork, find the lot, look what's in the pot, contact the scheme provider and say you want to transfer, you want to consolidate. It is what we've all been doing, right? We've all been cleaning out our wardrobes. COVID-19, it gives you a sense of control at a time where there is no control. Do the same with your pension. Do the same with your investments. Don't put it off.
And a few people have been just asking, so if I have multiple pensions, I've decided I want to bring them all together, how do you actually do that? Do you have to call up your pension and actually get them to transfer it to a different pension? Is that like the practical element of it?
Yeah, so you can look on the documentation you have, contact that provider, say you're looking at transferring your pension, and the two providers, the one that you are transferring from and the one you're transferring to, they will get the deal done between them. You just need to fill out the paperwork and post it to them. So it feels extremely daunting. It is actually surprisingly easy, even though it's still very much sending post. It's not very digital. There are some digital providers, a company called PensionBee, that gives you a digital way of consolidating your pension, but it is easier said than done. My final point is on expression of wish. Decide who you want to leave your pension to. Fill that in. It's a question of logging into your pension account, saying, I want to leave this to my daughter, I want to leave this to my husband, I want to leave 50% of my pension to my daughter, 50% to my husband. If you've gone through a divorce or a breakup or your circumstances have changed, update that expression of wish. You might not realize it, but your most valuable asset might be your pension, and you want to make sure it goes to the right person.
So when someone just said then, what happens if I die? What happens to my pension? If they fill out one of these expressions of wish, that will tell the people. And with that, do you, again, sorry, just to confirm, do you write to your pension provider, or is it generally just a form you download?
It's a very easy form.
Online?
So when you log into your pension portal where you see how much you've got in your pot, there will be forms and documents. You go into that and you fill it. It's very easy, kind of type that in. The other thing you need to type in is your retirement age. When do you intend on retiring? So it might default to say 55, but you might want to retire at age 65. And that is really important because if you're in that default option, it's going to start de-risking, and it's going to de-risk earlier than it should. It's going to move into bonds, cash, investments that don't have that real growth. And that's something a lot, I wasn't aware of this until I started really working in the pensions industry. But it's also a small little administrative thing you've got to change, but will make a big difference, especially to the ladies who are dialing in, who are closer to retirement age, who think they've got a small pot, who still want to boost that pot and delay taking the money. Make sure you've specified what your retirement age is so that the pension investments don't automatically start de-risking. And the tip here is if you're invested in something that's called it's got lifestyle in the name. Lifestyling is that process where the investments automatically start de-risking, because obviously if you're closer to retirement, the provider of the investments doesn't want you to lose a big chunk of your pot, so they will automatically start de-risking. I just want to check if there's anything else in the pack. So we spoke about fees, investment options, and service. That's a lot to do if you're setting up a private pension, because you're going to have to make a few choices around your investments, which could be daunting. Look at a company, look at their website. What material do they have there to support you, to guide you? Companies can't give advice, I can't give advice, but we can give guidance. So look at the content and the support out there, look at the tools and calculators. All those things can help you make a decision. Look at the choice of investments and look at the fees attached to those investments. And that's just a nice little summary of kind of what we need to do. Organize your pension, talk to your pension provider, you can talk to HR, play around with pension calculators. There are lots on our website. Make sure you update your expression of wish.
And this is literally going to take the length of maybe like when you're sorting out your pension, this is going to take the same amount of time as watching an episode on Netflix. So next time you go down to sit to watch, your favorite Lovesick episode or whatever, be like, no, I'm going to adult hard and I'm going to sort my pension, because your future self is going to be like so proud and so happy you did. All right, I know we're at time, so I'm just going to ask a couple of questions because we've had some really good ones come through. And this information has just been so awesome. So thank you so much, Micah. So what have we got here? Yeah, just around, people just have a couple more questions around, okay, so they want to consolidate their pension. How do they pick the best pension?
Okay, so when you get near to retirement age and you're thinking about how you need to draw down that pension, that's where investment choices really matter. And not all of the workplace providers might have the income drawdown ability. So this is when you start thinking about a SIP. What I would say is most workplace pensions are very competitive in what they offer fee-wise and investment choice-wise. So unless you're really unhappy with your workplace pension, I wouldn't close it, because while you're in that job with that employer, you want to benefit from their contributions, right? And as you go through your career, I saw some stats just published the other day that most of us are likely to have 11 jobs over our career. So 11 pension pots potentially jotted around. Bring them with you, transfer them to possibly a SIP, which is where you might transfer everything into once you come to retirement age. Transfer them into your current workplace pension. Or there is some rules around small pension pots. So smaller pension pots don't add up to that lifetime allowance. So if you've got pots that are worth less than £30,000, you might leave them separately. You've got to do a bit of research before you consolidate. But I think it gives you a very much a better sense of how much you have. Instead of you doing the sums, thinking, okay, I've got 20K in this pot, I've got 5K in that pot, I've got it invested. Yeah, it's just the logical thing of having things in one place makes it easier to manage and brings down costs.
And final question. People are talking about LISAs, so they're saying why. So I'm assuming that's a lifetime ISA. So they're saying, should I just have a LISA instead of a pension?
So a LISA, I need to get my figures right here. You can put in £4,000 and you get £1,000 top up from the government, and you can use that towards buying your first property. You can only use it towards buying your first property if you haven't bought a property before. If you have a property, then you can only access that LISA, I think, at age 55, age 65. So the contribution you get from the government on a standard pension is the same or better if you're a higher rate taxpayer, a 40% taxpayer or a 45% taxpayer. And the flexibility is better, the investment choices. So a LISA, if you guys know what London prices are, you're going to save into a LISA possibly forever, and you will probably not have enough to put down the deposit. And in that case, you're going to wait until age 55, 65 to access it. So if you want to take advantage of that free £1,000 that you're going to get if you put in £4,000, by all means do it. But a LISA is not a substitute for a pension, because the free money you get from is from your employer if you're in a workplace pension and the government. It's a double whammy, a positive double whammy, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh. Well, time flies when you're talking about pensions. So I just want you to quickly tap into the chat. What has been your biggest takeaway today, or what is your next step you're going to take? I know there was a bunch of questions. We hope we covered as many as we could. If there's anything else specifically you really want to know, hit me up with an email, and we have a bunch of people online who can help us answer those questions. So let us know. Great. So I'm just going to quickly see. So increase my pension contributions, fill out an expression of wish. Yes, that is important. understanding a good pension size, use the calculator. Yeah, and I'm going to link also some pension calculators to this. I'm also going to put in the top tips. So thank you so much.
The best one I've seen is opt back into my pension. Yes, good.
Opt back into my pension. Brilliant. Yes, definitely opt in. It's free money. Now you know why they say it's free money. So guys, obviously we've got a podcast. We talk about a whole range of topics from tax to pensions to investing. And we're also running a 6-week money boot camp. So we do a whole week on pensions. It's with Lisa Conway Hughes, who's a financial advisor. We also talk about mindset, about how to manage your cash flow in minutes. We do investing. We talk about safety net, protecting yourself. But we do go into pensions in a lot of depth, and we will answer a lot of those questions that are in there. So you can, there's a code there, which is She's on the Money Gal Pal, and you can save £54 on that. And our Instagram winner is Ashley Greg. So Ashleen Greg. So I will shoot you the details. Congratulations. Thanks for entering our Insta competition. And just quickly, I want to say thank you so much to all of you for coming along and for taking, your financial future so seriously. I think, this is a topic which you can understand why I'm so keen to get this in your faces, especially, while we're in our 20s, 30s and 40s and we have that time and we can use that compounding interest. And so thank you so much, Fidelity International, for sponsoring and for empowering so many women. Thank you so much, Micah, for your brilliant knowledge and for sharing so openly and generously. And thank you, everyone, for coming along. And we hope to see you at another webinar soon.
Cool. Have a good weekend, all.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.